you don't exist. Take a perk and a talk of that shit. Money swallowed like sis. Dead up perfect in the kid. Got a billion who sang on my head. Look up better put on the road I just spent. I know we got $1 million. The devil that shit ain't not cheap again.
Hello and welcome back, fellow anime lovers, to MangaMuse. I am delighted to have you join us once again in the world of fanfiction and fantasy. This is the 9th part of What If Deku Enters HazbinHotel. Special note, this fanfic is written in a masterpiece of MaxX69 on FANFICTIONnet. Do check and support the author too. Now smash the like, share and subscribe button for more. Also press the bell icon so that you never miss such great parts. Thanks for the introduction. Now let's dive into the world. But despite being discovered, both Melo and Uraraka knew that they had to inform our young Cambion about their current situation and the fact that they found Ida and the bomb. So, with this, Uraraka moved her hand to the wireless radio in her ear, wishing to share their current situation with Izuku. As the zero-gravity quirk user attempted to contact the only male member of the hero team, on the floor below, the son of the radio demon and the spiky, blonde-haired male teenager continued to go toe-to-toe with each other, constantly attacking each other and dodging each other's strikes, thus meaning that neither of them could land a single blow on the other. In another attempt to injure the nerd, with the help of a few explosions, Bakugou flew himself in the direction of our dear hero and extended his right hand towards him, trying to land an explosion right into his face. In response, Izuku jumped away from him and to the side, moving his hands and commanding his tentacles to attack the explosion quirk user. Witnessing the upcoming, Bakugou released 2 explosions from his hands, one from each at the tentacles, thus shooting himself backwards and making a distance between him and the tentacles, which retreated back to the side of the one who summoned them, who looked at his bully with determination and bravery, showing no sign of afraidness towards him, thus frustrating Bakugou even more. They were about to go on with their sparring, when suddenly, the brown-haired adolescent girl spoke up through the wireless radio of our protagonist, causing him to shift his focus from his opponent to his ally, touching the wireless radio in his ear with his hand. "Deku," Uraraka said through the communication device. "What is it, Uraraka?" Izuku wondered, touching his wireless radio with his right hand. "Ida found us, we're sorry." The zero-gravity quirk user apologized, knowing well that it was her fault that she, Melo, and the shadows were discovered in the first place. "Don't forget the plan," the son of the radio demon advised his teammates, ticking off the spiky, blonde-haired teenager boy even more with his ignorance towards him. "You're ignoring me again?" Bakugou questioned with boiling rage inside him as our young overlord continued his conversation with his teammates. "I guess one explosion wasn't enough," he remarked, lifting his left arm and pointing at Izuku with his gauntlet, pulling the upper part backwards and putting his finger on the pin, planning to release a powerful explosion similar to the one he let out from his right gauntlet. Seeing what was about to unfold in the monitor room, one of the male students of class 1 proceeded to open his mouth, beginning to speak and gaining the attention of his teacher. "Sir, you need to stop them," the spiky, red-haired student demanded. "That Bakugou guy is really crazy. He's gonna kill Midoriya," he declared, with the rest of the class agreeing with this statement of his. "No," All Might answered, refusing to stop the lesson. The symbol of peace knew that this was the right thing he should have done, but he didn't do it, all because of a single reason. He saw that despite all the risky and dangerous acts the explosion quirk user committed to our protagonist and his teammates, he didn't wish to end Izuku's life and just wanted to scare him, wishing to make his confidence vanish. But still, he couldn't just stand in one place and do absolutely nothing while his students were trying to injure each other severely. So, with the decision in his mind, the #1 hero of Japan proceeded to open his mouth, desiring to stop the spiky, blonde-haired adolescent boy in the action he was about to perform. But as he was about to make his announcement, suddenly, 3 poker cards our dear hero received from his uncle were sent out by the son of the radio demon, with the first completely missing Bakugou's body, the second cutting the upper part of Bakugou's left gauntlet off, thus preventing him from releasing a powerful explosion, and the third cutting the left cheek of the explosion quirk user's face and making a small cut wound on it, causing blood to leak out of the wound, all 3 poker cards landing into the hard wall, taking aback everyone in the monitor room. At the moment the poker card cut his face, the spiky, blonde-haired flinched at the pain a bit and touched his injured cheek with his left hand and observed, allowing him to see the blood that leaked out of the wound on his hand, shocking him. Then, he looked up from his hand and set his eyes upon the son of the radio demon, who was holding another set of 3 cards in his right hand. Observing the explosion quirk user with determination and confidence on his face, thus resulting in the rage inside Bakugo's body to skyrocket. Shortly after he threw the cards and his bully, he focused his attention back on his teammates and continued his conversation with them through the wireless radio, putting his cards back in their place and not paying attention to Bakugo once again, causing his anger to reach unimaginable heights, wishing to punish our young Cambion for this action as much as he could. He was about to approach Izuku, desiring to perform this act with the intention of hurting him. He was suddenly interrupted in his tracks by none other than the symbol of peace, who began to speak through the speaker shortly after he shook off the surprise that inhabited him. "Young Bakugo, if you try to use that again, I will put an end to the fight, and your team will lose," All Might announced, wanting to prevent the spiky, blonde-haired from using his intact gauntlet if it recharged. "Huh?" Bakugo questioned with frustration in his voice. "An attack on a scale like this is too dangerous on the inside. You just bring destruction to the place you need to protect. This is a foolish plan for both villains and heroes," the number 1 hero stated, then continued. "You will lose a lot of points for it," he declared, finishing his speech and angering the spiky, blonde-haired male adolescent even more. Bakugo just couldn't take it anymore. He could barely contain his rage after all the interactions he had with the nerd during this lesson. And now, his teacher forbade him from using his gauntlet, thus preventing him from punishing Izuku as much as he wanted. That was it. He won't contain it anymore. He will release all his anger inside him, no matter what. So, in order to do this, he first began to scream in frustration, still not believing that his teacher didn't allow him to do what he wanted. All the while our protagonist went on with his conversation with his teammates. "Melo, get Idas and distract him with the shadows. Uraraka, use the paper and get the bomb," Izuku commanded his teammates as the explosion quirk user went on with his tantrum. "Got it," Melo replied, acknowledging her best friend's request and placing her attention on her female teammate. "You heard him, Uraraka. Let's get this done," she said, then proceeded to run towards the ex-Sumi student, with the 3 shadows accompanying her as well. "I won't let you, heroes," Ida declared as ran towards the disguised imp girl, still living the villain vibe with his usual seriousness. As they began to decrease the distance between each other, Melo proceeded to produce fire from her feet, lifting her into the air, jumping over the engine quirk user, and flying herself towards the bomb, with the 3 shadows performing this activity as well. Seeing this, the ex-Sumi student started the engines in his legs and rushed to the bomb as fast as he could, grabbing it and moving out of the way, thus preventing the disguised imp girl and the 3 shadows from touching it. Witnessing that she was about to hit the floor instead of getting her hands on the bomb, Melo moved her legs and landed on the ground safely. All the while the engine quirk user attempted to open his mouth and talk to her. "Even if you can fly, your quirk is no match for me, hero," Ida remarked, then continued. "I can and I will hold on until the time runs out," he declared as Melo and the shadows observed him with a determined expression, being completely eager to do their part of the plan. All the while the zero-gravity quirk user just witnessed the scene in awe, taken aback how fast she proceeded to distract Ida. But as she observed their fight, she quickly reminded herself of her part in our protagonist's plan, causing her to hide behind the nearest pillar where no one in the room could see her. Then, she took her paper out of her pocket, took a deep breath, and opened her mouth, beginning to speak. "Aizen," Uraraka chanted with a confident face as she observed the paper, doing the act her male teammate asked her to. But when she said the name of the voodoo symbol, something unimaginable happened. At first, the symbol began to emit a light green light, just like when our protagonist readied it for activation. But then, her hair began to move a bit as if it was blown by the wind, and a green aura around her feet and formed a circle on the floor around her, beginning to go upwards. As it did so, her feet disappeared, yet she was still standing, shocking her. While she just stared at the phenomena in awe, the aura continued its journey, making more and more parts of her body vanish as it went upwards. Once it went over her head and finished its journey, the body of the zero-gravity quirk user was nowhere to be seen, with the only indication of her presence being the small paper that had the voodoo symbol on it. That was the effect that the symbol Aizen possessed. Once its drawer readied it for activation, anyone, including the one who drew it, who said its name out loud could turn invisible for a very long time, offering camouflage for its user. And in spite of its effect being active for just around 2 or 3 minutes, it was very useful for a stealth mission, or in situations such as the one Uraraka and Melo were in. As the brown-haired female adolescent witnessed her freshly turned invisible body in shock, with the rest of Class 1A and All Might sharing the same emotion as her, with the latter being surprised by the mere fact that despite using many different support items during this lesson, he still had tricks under his sleeve. The small paper in her right hand suddenly got caught on fire, taking Uraraka out of her stunned state and causing her to look at the burning paper. But by the time she set her eyes upon it, the paper disintegrated into nothingness, thus leaving no sign of her exact location for the ones in the monitor. Seeing his student completely vanish, the symbol of peace turned on the thermal vision function of the camera, allowing him and the rest of Class 1A to see that Uraraka didn't move an inch during this short amount of time. And thus, after shaking off her surprise, the zero-gravity quirk user proceeded to do her part of the plan, wishing to complete the lesson before the time ran out. At the same time, Bakugou was done throwing a fit and released a few explosions from his hands, launching himself into the air and towards Izuku, who just observed his bully with determination, waiting for his next move cautiously. "Fine, then, let's fight it out with our fists," the explosion quirk user announced as he flew in the direction of our young Cambion, wishing to finally punish him. Witnessing his childhood friend quickly approaching him, Izuku extended his hands and commanded his tentacles towards Bakugou, wishing to prevent him from getting close to him. Unfortunately, he was not that lucky. Bakugou successfully evaded the strikes of the tentacles by redirecting himself in the air, thus getting very close to our protagonist. Seeing no other way to protect himself, he attempted to raise his right hand, clench it into a fist, and hit his bully, not desiring him to get too close to him. But as he was about to land his strike, the spiky, blonde-haired male teenager let off an explosion right into the face of the son of Radio Demon, making him experience a bit of pain and not allowing him to hit him. After this, Bakugou flew over Izuku's head, released an explosion from his right hand in order to stop himself in the air for a tiny bit, and let out an explosion from his other hand at the part of Izuku's back that was not shielded by the black tentacle, causing our young overlord to feel even more pain despite the protective layer of his costume and lose control over his tentacles, making them retreat back to their portals and vanish from sight, with the explosion quirk user taking aback everyone in the monitor with this unaccepted move. Our dear hero didn't even have enough time to process what was going on. Once the portals that the tentacles came out of closed, the spiky, blonde-haired male adolescent rushed towards him once again, speaking to him in the process. "Here's your favorite right swing," Bakugou declared, then hit Izuku's right arm with his right hand with all of his strength, resulting in our young overlord experiencing even greater pain. After this, Bakugou grabbed his right arm with his right hand and let off an array of explosions from his left hand, performing a 180 degrees turn, lifting our protagonist into the air and smacking him to the hard floor with full force, making Izuku pounce off the floor and raise into the air a bit, causing him to drop his old-fashioned microphone and make his hat fall off of his head and land on the ground. "You will be always below me," the explosion quirk user proclaimed as our young Cambion began to get dizzy, thinking about the whole situation. He knew that his bully was going to give him a long time to think, but he knew he also needed a plan to finish this fight. But at that moment, it seemed to him that resolution was not solvable. After all, despite using all the gadgets and training he received from his demonic loved ones, he still couldn't beat Bakugou. He was too powerful. But he also couldn't let the kind and helpful advice and acts of his hellish family members, friends, and teacher turn into nothingness. So, fueled by their kind actions, he began to think of a plan to finally end this battle once and for all. Meanwhile, as these events transpired, there was quite a negative voice for Bakugou and his actions. He could have just used the capture tape to capture Izuku, thus ending the fight. But instead of doing that, he proceeded to hurt our protagonist more and more, acting in a manner that was not suitable for a hero. At first, it seemed for most of the students that judging by what they saw from Izuku during the quirk test the previous day and during today's hero lesson, Our protagonist was the one who could win this fight. But by witnessing Bakugo's raw strength and aggressive style of fighting, they changed their opinion on the possible outcome of the fight between the son of the radio demon and the explosion quirk user. As they went on observing the battle, a teenager girl suddenly heard a strange noise, which noise only she heard thanks to her special ability, making her shift her attention from the screen and turn around, facing the direction the sound came from, which was none other the doorway that connected the monitor room to the hallway to lead to it. The girl was a petite, fair-skinned on who had a slender build, acquiring triangular onyx eyes with notably long lower eyelashes and small eyebrows. She obtained dark purple hair with a chin length and an asymmetrical fringe with two reflections shaped like sound waves on each side. Her most noticeable physical features were the flexible, plug-like earphone jacks hanging down from each of her earlobes, being able to act as extra limbs that she could control at will and could change their length if she desired to, with her having these rather unique and special body parts due to her quirk. She was wearing her own hero costume that consisted of a black leather jacket, a long salmon-colored shirt with several rips at the collar and hem, black pants, and boots with stereos built into their shafts. She also acquired two small, triangular red paint marks just below her eyes, a plain black choker, and white fingerless gloves. After turning her around fully, she attempted to approach and walk up to the door in an attempt to see what made that sound, gaining the attention of a few of her classmates, who just stared at her for a few seconds, then placed their vision on the fight, ignoring her. Once reaching the doorway, she grabbed the side of the doorway with her right hand, leaned forward, and turned her head to the right, setting her eyes upon the dark hallway, wishing to witness the source of the strange noise. But when she performed this action, she saw something that she had never expected to see. In the dark, very near her location, close to the ground, a pair of small eyes were findable, emitting a low, pink-colored light from them, and a few spots on the backside letting out the same light. At first, the teenager girl acquired both shock and a tiny bit of fear inside her, not knowing what kind of creature she was looking at. But soon enough, her fear transformed into an even greater surprise and confusion when the creature stepped closer to her, exited the darkness, and got into the light that was provided by the huge screen in the monitor room, revealing himself to be none other than Fat Nuggets, holding Kiki in her key form, which she turned into when she saw the approaching shadow of the adolescent girl in his mouth, observing the girl innocently with his eyes. "What the?" The teenager girl quizzed in confusion as she witnessed the pet pig with her eyes. In the meantime, in the building where the hero lesson was held, Izuku got up from the floor, grabbed his vintage mic with his left hand, laid his right hand on his hat, and began to crawl away from the spiky, blonde-haired on all fours, wishing to get away from him as fast he could. Once he got enough distance from him and reached the wall that had the large windows on it, stood up to his feet, put his hat back on the top of his head, and turned around, facing his bully while he snapped with his fingers and summoned 3 new tentacles. "What's wrong, Deku? Too afraid to stand up against me? Are you underestimating me?" Bakugo asked in a threatening tone as he walked towards the nerd he had been terrorizing for the past 10 years, wishing to end this fight by beating the shit out of him. "No, that's not it," Izuku replied as he looked at the floor, then continued, "I think you're an amazing person, so that's why I want to beat you," he stated as he looked up from the floor and tears began to form in the corner of his eyes. Gathering all the encourage he could for the sentence he was about to say to his bully in the process, ticking off the explosion quirk user with his comment, "I want to win and surpass you, you idiot," the son of the radio demon declared, expressing his desire of truly standing up against him and show him he could be a hero. "Don't look at me like that," Bakugo demanded as he released a few tiny explosions from his left hand, continuing to approach Izuku. "You damn nerd," he noted with anger in his voice, then moved his hands and let out a few explosions from his hands, launching himself into the air and in the direction of our young overlord. That was the action Izuku was waiting for. He just needed Bakugo to get as close to him as could, with this due to the fact that the closer he was to him, the better chance he had to accomplish his plan. Soon enough, the explosion quirk user got close to him to set his plan into motion. Bakugo was about to release an explosion right into Izuku's face, just like the way he did moments ago. But then, our young Cambion did something neither his bully nor the rest of Class 1A and all might expected. Izuku grabbed his microphone with both of his hands, swung it, and smacked Bakugo right in the face with it, using it as a club, absolutely shocking the #1 hero and the rest of Class 1A with this action. Then, our protagonist proceeded to drop his old-fashioned mic and took control of his tentacles, directing one to move towards the spiky, blonde-haired male adolescent and wrap around his body, thus not allowing him to move. After this, he gave the capture tape to one of the other 2 tentacles and moved them in the direction of Bakugo, controlling them to wrap the tape around his bully's body as fast as possible. Once this act was completed, the tentacles dropped Bakugo on the ground and the tentacles went back into their respective portals, which closed at the moment the tentacles got into them fully, thus signaling Izuku that his plan was a success, which he himself was surprised about, sharing the same surprise with All Might and the rest of his class as well. Once getting dropped on the ground and getting rid of his dizziness from the strike of the mic, the explosion quirk user attempted to get the capture off of his body, speaking in the process. "What is this? Why doesn't it come off?" the spiky, blonde-haired said in rage as he tried to get out of the hold of the capture tape, which act, unfortunately for him, was unsuccessful. As he tried to get himself free, the symbol of peace spoke through the speakers, gaining the attention of all the 5 students in the building. "The hero team has won," All Might announced, drawing the attention of the 5 students and the 3 shadows and shocking the members of the villain team with his statement. "What?" Ida questioned in shock, all the while Melo smiled at the news, happy to hear that her team had won the exercise. "But no one touched the bomb," he stated, not understanding why his team lost. But shortly after he said this, he soon got his answer to his question in the form of the zero-gravity quirk user, who lost her visibility not long after she touched the bomb, shocking the ex-semi student even more. "You can turn invisible too, Uraraka?" the engine quirk user queried, taken aback by seeing the brown-haired teenager girl appear out of nowhere. Uraraka was about to answer his question, desiring to explain how she became invisible, but she was stopped in this activity when she felt that her lunch was on the edge of exiting her body due to overusing her quirk in order to avoid being hit by Ida when he moved the bomb to prevent Melo and the shadows from touching it, resulting in her covering her mouth with her hands and collapsing on the floor, making her 2 classmates and the 3 shadows to rush to her side. "Uraraka, are you all right?" Ida wondered from his classmate as he and the disguised imp girl crouched down, with Uraraka trying not to vomit. "Uraraka, your candy," Melo said, reminding her teammate to the sweet that her best friend gave both of them. Remembering back to the candies and what our young overlord told them about their effect when he gave them to them, the zero-gravity quirk user pulled the candy out of her pocket and put it inside her mouth, beginning to taste it as her saliva started to break the candy down. At the moment she began to consume the candy, her nausea vanished in an instant, surprising her and allowing her to stand up to her feet without any issue, all the while Ida, Melo, and the 3 shadows observed her with a worried expression on their faces. "Uraraka," the ex-summy started with a worried tone as the brown-haired female adolescent slowly rose up to her feet. "I'm fine," Uraraka replied as she stood up to her feet fully, still taken aback by the fact that the candy actually made her dizziness and nausea disappear. All the while the imp girl with a human disguise witnessed the whole scene with a small smile on her face, glad to see that her best friend's plan worked and her female teammate was all right. After he heard the announcement of his role model, our dear hero morphed a small smile on his face, glad to hear that his teammates were successful in their part of the plan. However, he was soon interrupted in this action by none other than his childhood friend, screaming in anger after he heard this announcement. "No, it's not over yet," the explosion quirk user demanded with a rageful tone as he still tried to get himself free from the capture tape, refusing to give up even after the end of this exercise. "No, it's over," Izuku responded as he leaned down and picked up his old-fashioned microphone from the ground with his left hand, flinching from the pain in his left arm, making Bakugo look at him with frustration. "I tried to do this as painlessly as possible, but," he stated as the adrenaline from his fight with the spiky, blonde-haired wore off, causing the pain in his arm to increase, "this was only one thing that came to my mind," the son of the radio demon explained as he touched his injured arm with his right hand, holding it and trying to bear the pain as much as he could. At the moment Izuku said this remark of his, a realization struck Bakugo. a realization that caused him to lose all his rage and observe the nerd he had been bullying for a decade with utter shock. During all this time, our young cambion was just toying with him. He was just playing around with him and tried to make him fall into his trap, which he did. And as he thought about this, another realization hit the explosion quirk user. If Izuku had used all of his strength from the beginning of the lesson, it wouldn't have taken him a millisecond to defeat him, causing the spiky, blonde-haired teenager boy to just set his eyes upon the hard floor in shock, not being able to say even a single word. As these interactions went on the building, in the monitor room, the rest of Class 1A and All Might just witnessed the unfolding events, with the former still being taken aback by the success of our protagonist's plan, and the latter feeling pride for his student accomplishing his plan, making the symbol of peace think that there was even more potential in our young cambion to become a pro-hero, beginning to consider the thought of making him into something that very important and special for the #1 hero of Japan. While he watched the screen with his eyes, he was taken out of this state by the teenager girl with the earphone jack earlobes, making him stop the activity he was performing. All Might, the dark purple-haired girl started, drawing everyone's attention to her. Yes, young Gyro, what is the issue? All Might started as he turned his body around, referring to the girl as Gyro, but was interrupted in his speech when he saw her holding fat nuggets in her hands and the key turned Kiki between her fingers. I think we have a problem, Kyoko remarked as the demonic pet pig looked at her with eyes filled with curiousness and innocence, snuggling to her joy, which she surprisingly enjoyed, although she didn't show it. Shortly after the state of her female teammate got to the better, Melo's shadow, and Uraraka's shadow reminded themselves of the condition of our young overlord when they left him to fight with Bakugo, causing the disguised imp girl to speak up, wishing to share the act she was about to do with the two other teenagers in the room. I'm gonna check on Zuzu, Melo stated, gaining the attention of the two adolescents. Okay? Uraraka replied, understanding the statement of her female teammate. After hearing that her teammate understood what she said, the disguised imp girl turned around and started to rush in the direction of the only door in the room, being followed by the 3 sentient shadows in this action. Once reaching the door, she laid her right hand on the door handle, pushed it down, and opened the door, rushing through it as fast as she could, with the shadows trying to keep up with her, not even closing the door once they exited the room. As she ran through hallway after hallway, the worry for her friend grew bigger and bigger in Melo's body, fearing that might have injured himself even more, such as getting his hurt arm even more burned, or getting one of his arms or one of his legs broken, or worse, getting beaten to the brink of death by his bully. And if that was the case, Melo was 100% sure to make Bakugo face the consequences. After a few minutes of running, she and the trio of shadows finally reached the floor where the battle between her best friend and the explosion quirk user had taken place, allowing her and the 3 shadows to set their eyes upon the things that the room contained. And they did this. Both Melo and the 3 shadows were shocked by what they saw. In the hallway, the #1 hero of Japan was located, who left his students in the monitor despite the fact that one of his students found a rather strange-looking pet pig, doing this due to calling medical assistance for our dear hero, observing Izuku, who was still holding his left arm in pain and was keeping his vintage mic at his left side, having scars on his face from the explosion that Bakugou released right into his face and being removed from the more open part of the building on a folding stretcher carried by 2 small medical robots, taking our protagonist towards the main entrance of the building. Seeing her best friend in such a condition, the disguised imp girl moved her legs and jolted in the direction of our young cambion, sharing this activity with her shadow, and the zero-gravity quirk user's shadow. Zuzu, Melo cried out in fear as she and the 3 shadows jolted towards Izuku, earning his and the symbol of peace's attention with this. Oh, hi Hensashida. The son of the radio demon answered as he flinched from the pain in his left forearm once again, saying hi to his first demonic friend while he tried to resist the pain. What happened to you? The imp girl with a human disguise asked in a worried tone as she got the sight of Izuku, referring to the small scars on the face of her friend and making the robots stop in their tracks due to her presence. Well, Kaken got me good, but I managed to beat him, our young overlord explained as he observed the group with his green eyes, surprising his best imp friend with this reveal, all the while All Might watched their conversation. In order to check that what he was saying was true, Melo turned her head to the right and set her eyes upon the more open area of the building, sharing this act with the trio of shadows. And when they did this, they saw the spiky, blonde-haired teenager boy with his body being wrapped around with the capture tape, still sitting on the floor and still being under the effect of the shock he was experiencing. Witnessing Bakugo in a state like this, Melo formed a smile on her face, proud of her best friend for successfully defeating his bully. As she and the shadows observed the explosion quirk user, the son of the radio demon went on with his speech, getting the attention of the group once again. "You've done well, my friends. You can rest now," Izuku told to the shadows of the disguised imp girl and the zero-gravity quirk user as his first demonic friend, and the three shadows looked at him, witnessing them with a small smile on his face. Hearing what their master said them, Melo's shadow changed back into its shadow form and lost his sensibility, transforming back into the regular, unliving shadow that it was before our protagonist summoned it. With Uraraka's shadow leaving the group and flying off the direction the imp girl with a human disguise, and the two other shadows came from, wishing to do the same act as Melo's shadow once it reached the location of the brown-haired adolescent girl. Once the two shadows vanished, the robots continued their journey towards the main entrance of the building, wanting to deliver Izuku to Recovery Girl to get him treated as fast as possible. Seeing this, Shadow proceeded to follow the two medical robots, worrying for his master's well-being and desiring to keep him company. That was the act Melo was about to perform as well. However, she was stopped by the number one hero walking next to her and putting his large right hand on her left shoulder, resulting in the disguised imp girl setting her eyes upon her. "Do not worry, young Hensashita. Recovery Girl will take good care of him," All Might assured kindly, trying to calm his female student down. But Melo started in a worried tone, worrying for her best friend's well-being and wishing to go with him to the nurse's office. "Trust me, he will be fine." The symbol of peace reassured, went on with his speech. "You can visit him after the lesson is over, okay?" he suggested, attempting to calm Melo down with this offer of his. "Okay," Melo replied with a bit of hesitation, still unsure about not going after her best friend. "Good," All Might said, being glad to see that his student was somewhat a bit calmer by his offer, then continued. "Now, I suggest you get out of the building and wait for me and others outside, so we can get back to your class together," he suggested with kindness. "Okay," the imp girl with a human disguise replied, agreeing to do as the one she was tasked to assassinate said, and with this, she moved her legs and proceeded to walk in the direction of the main entrance, desiring to exit the building, all the while hoping that her best friend was going to be all right. Once his female student left the area, the number one hero of Japan placed his vision on the spiky, blonde-haired teenager boy, who didn't move even an inch during all this time. Still trying to process the mere fact that the nerd he hated was not only able to stand up against him, but also getting him into a trap and defeating him, and started to walk towards him, beginning to untie him from the capture tape, talking to him in the process. "Do not fear, young Bakugo," All Might said, then went on with his speech. "Even if you're defeated, you can still learn from your experiences and become a better version of yourself," he noted as he untied the capture tape, freeing Bakugo from it. "Now come back, so we can review this exercise," the symbol of peace suggested as he helped the shocked adolescent up to his feet, then continued, "and also get your wound treated as well," he remarked, referring to the small cut wound the explosion quirk user's left cheek. "I don't need it," Bakugo declared, refusing to go to Recovery Girl and get the small cut on his face treated. "As you wish, young Bakugo," All Might answered, being a bit taken aback by the spiky, blonde-haired male teenager raising his voice out of nowhere. After this interaction between the symbol of peace and the explosion quirk user came to an end, they attempted to turn around and leave the area, entering the area where All Might was just a few moments ago. By the time they got out of the more open part of the building, Uraraka and Ida were there as well, joining All Might's and Bakugo's duo. With this, the group consisting of 4 of them began to walk in the direction of the main entrance of the building, arriving at it in a matter of minutes. Once reaching the door and opening it, the group exited the building, with All Might keeping the door for his students and leaving the building last, closing the door behind his back. Outside, the group found Melo standing near the entrance, waiting for them to exit it during this time and joining the group once she saw them. And with her, the group began their journey in the direction of the monitor, wishing to get back to the rest of Class 1A. A few minutes passed and they got to the monitor room and entered it, allowing the 4 students to set their eyes upon the current situation that was unfolding there. Namely, the mere fact that Gyro found fat nuggets, who she was still holding in her hands, to be exact, shocking the group of students with this, with the exception of Bakugou, who didn't care about this and was still under the effect of the shock he obtained from being defeated by the nerd he had been bullying for the past 10 years. Seeing the pet pig, Uraraka got overwhelmed by cuteness and immediately rushed to her dark purple-haired classmate, adoring the pet of angeldust thanks to how cute he was, with most of the class and nearly all the girls doing the same act as her, which Fat Nuggets quite enjoyed. All the while the engine quirk questioned how could a pig enter the property of Ua High, and Melo was sweating bullets with nervousness and fright in her eyes, fearing that with the discovery of Fat Nuggets, they could find out about the existence of the realm of suffering, thus potentially resulting in all hell breaking loose. But when she saw how everyone reacted to the demonic pet pig, she accomplished to make her nervosity disappear a bit, causing her to assume that they didn't find out about the existence of hell despite the fact that Fat Nuggets had some unusual physical attributes compared to pigs on Earth, such as small spikes on his backside and unusual color scheme. As most of the members of Class 1A adored the pet pig, they were interrupted by none other than their teacher, requesting them to stop what they were doing so they could review the results of the first battle. Despite not being happy for being not allowed to continue to adore Fat Nuggets, the members of Class A1 stopped what they were doing, with the 4 students who were in the first exercise getting to the other side of the room, facing their classmates, all of them focusing their attention on All Might. During the checking of the results, it was revealed that out of 5 students who were in the first exercise, Ida was the one who performed the best, surprising everyone. Seeing the confusion in the eyes of his students, the number 1 hero asked if there was someone in the class who could give an answer to this question, wanting to make his students more active and show their knowledge. Soon enough, a volunteer occurred in the form of a tall teenager girl with long black-colored hair kept in a spiky ponytail, saying that the reason why the ex-Summy student was the MVP in the lesson was that he was the only one who performed his task successfully, beginning to list all the mistakes that the 4 other students committed in the exercise, with Bakugou leaving his teammate all by himself, using a large-scale attack indoors, and letting his rage consume him, resulting in him falling right into the trap of our protagonist, which despite hating it, he agreed with Uraraka accidentally revealing her, Melo's, and the 3 Shadows location, with Melo being hesitant when the large explosion was let out, thus causing our dear hero to get injured, which the disguised imp girl despised to get reminded of due to being the reason her best was hurt in the first place, and with Izuku taking a bit too far with the trap he set up for Bakugou. Finishing her speech, the rest of the class was in awe of what she said, with All Might being taken by how detailed it was, with him adding that Ida could have taken a few things less seriously. But other than that, the adolescent girl was right, giving her a thumbs up as a sign of approval. Once the review of the results was over, the next 2 teams who were about to do the second battle were chosen, with the symbol of peace requesting the members of the 2 teams to go to the building where their exercise was planned to be kept. After this, the second battle started, which was quite short due to the teenager boy with white and red hair freezing the whole building in a single moment and winning the exercise in seconds, shocking Bakugou with his strength even more. And with this, the rest of the first hero lesson went on, with each team after the second match giving their best in their battles, being inspired by Izuku and how he acted during the battle. After the last exercise was over, All Might and all the students in Class 1A left the monitor room and gathered at the entrance of Ground Omega, with their teacher being findable in front of them, observing them with his eyes and starting to speak. "Good work, everyone," the number 1 hero praised, congratulating his students for their performance. With the exception of young Midoriya, no one got seriously injured, he remarked, which fact he was glad for. To have such a proper class after Mr. Aizawa's class, the adolescent girl with the frog quirk started. "It's kind of anticlimactic," she admitted as she scratched her right cheek with her right index finger in shyness, with almost all of her classmates, with the exceptions of the explosion quirk user and the ex-Summy student. Then I'm even more happy you enjoyed this lesson. All Might noted, being glad that his students found the lesson enjoyable. But now, I have to go, he announced, then continued, change back into your uniforms and go back to your classroom. The symbol of peace requested, then turned his body around and started to rush through the tunnel with incredible speed, creating a tiny gust of wind and surprising his students with his speed, with Melo observing the leaving hero with an expression that showed confusion, finding it rather strange that all of a sudden, All Might had to leave them. Despite wishing not to leave his students all by themselves in Ground Omega and desiring to go to the main building of the top hero school in the country, All Might couldn't stay with them. Not because he didn't want to. The reason for his sudden leaving was simple, but was something that no one in the school aside from the staff knew. He was reaching his limit, being moments away from turning back into his true, skinny form, and he couldn't allow his students to witness him in that form. So, he needed to go to a location where no student could see him. And what better place to hide from the eyes of the students than going to the nurse's office? So, with this plan inside his mind, the #1 hero of Japan sprinted in the direction of the main building of UA High, wishing to get to the nurse's office as fast as possible, all the while deciding to counsel Bakugou well as his teacher. In a matter of a few minutes, All Might arrived at the building of the #1 hero academy in the country, grabbed the handle of the entrance, moved it downwards, opened its door, and entered the building, closing the door behind his back and going on with his running towards the room he wished to go, although with much less speed due to not desiring to cause chaos and earn unwanted attention. Shortly after he got inside the building, his vision got the attention of a sign above a sliding door that had the words Nurse's Office written on it with Japanese kanjis, thus signaling the location of the place he wanted to go. Seeing the sign, the symbol of peace fastened his running a bit, arriving at the door just a few seconds after he noticed it, quickly grabbing the handle of the sliding door and moving the door to the right, opening it and allowing himself to step inside the nurse's office. After he entered the room and closed the door behind his back, All Might proceeded to catch his breath. All the while steam began to leave his muscular body, soon fully enveloping him and disappearing from sight, revealing his true, skinny, weak form. Noticing his presence, the nurse of UA turned around in her seat and set her eyes on the #1 hero, moving her jaw muscles and beginning to speak. Reaching your limit, I see, Recovery Girl remarked, saying the manner that suggested that there were times when All Might came to her just before he returned to his true form. Yes, All Might replied, being a tiny frustrated for not being able to hold on to his muscular form for a bit longer. I don't understand. Why are hiding your real form? The nurse of the top hero high school in the country wondered, then went on with her speech. I mean, you are the #1 hero and the symbol of peace. I understand you would get some unwanted attention from the public, but you still would be All Might, she noted, not understanding the whole keeping the true form as a secret situation. Because if the world knew, chaos would ensue. The #1 hero replied, then continued. The people wouldn't feel safe anymore knowing that the hero All Might is just a weak man, and the villains would gain confidence and the number in crime rates would increase. He explained, then moved his vision down and focused it on his right hand, looking at it with his eyes. That's why I need to keep my real look secret, so everyone would feel safe and would know that I can protect them. All Might said, finishing his speech and feeling responsible for keeping every citizen of Japan safe and not wanting to fail them as their hero. Well, at least one more person knows your secret, the nurse of UA High remarked, making All Might raise an eyebrow in confusion. Who? The symbol of peace with confusion, not understanding what Recovery Grill was talking about. Instead of responding to his question, the nurse of UA High just turned her head to the left in silence, causing All Might to do the same act as her, wishing to see what she was looking at, or rather, who. At the moment the #1 hero turned his head, he set his eyes upon our protagonist, Izukumidoriya, whom All Might didn't notice and didn't remember to be brought to the nurse's office due to how such a hurry he was in, and who was still in his hero costume and was sitting on the hospital bed nearest the position to the two adults, having his shadowy companion levitating at his left side and obtaining his injured left forearm wrapped in bandage, staring at All Might with absolute shock, sharing the same action with Shadow. All Might, Izuku started in shock, completely taken aback by the form of his role model. Young Midoriya, calm down, I can explain, All Might requested from his student in panic, not desiring for him to attract even more attention with his freak out, thus possibly getting his true, weak form revealed to more students. Once the symbol of peace successfully calmed our young Cambion down, he began to explain his situation and the reason for him hiding his true form from the eyes of the public, showing him the injury he sustained 5 years ago in a fight. He told him the condition he got into after that battle and revealed to him that due to his injuries, he couldn't do any hero work for more than 3 hours, because if he did, he could end in his form in the middle of a fight, thus revealing his true, fragile form to the citizens of the country. He told him that he didn't reveal his real form because the symbol of peace couldn't be daunted by fear, because the fear he acquired was revealed. The people of Japan wouldn't feel safe without their fearless symbol anymore, this being the reason behind his big smile aside from assuring the citizens that everything was all right. As the #1 hero talked about this, our young overlord was just sitting in the hospital bed, listening to him with shadow in awe. He couldn't believe it. All Might, the hero he had been looking up to throughout all his life since he was 4 years old, was sharing this very important information with him, a person he had only seen a few times and was just a student to him. But despite this, All Might decided to share this vital information with him, trusting him with 100% certainty. Izuku thought he was not worthy of knowing this, having the opinion that did not deserve the trust of his role model with such vital information. But by seeing how much All Might trusted him with this personal information, our protagonist wished to earn his full trust by sharing a very important and personal secret with him. The biggest secret he had ever obtained. This secret was the fact that he was the son of a powerful overlord in the realm of suffering, and hell was a real place. He thought that for telling him everything about his true form, All Might he deserved to know his secret. But as much as he wanted to do that, he couldn't do that, fearing that if he told him that, he could get Melo into trouble and bring chaos not only to Yua, but to the whole world as well. So instead, he decided to not tell about his role model's real form to anyone, not even Melo, desiring to earn his trust in this way. After he was done with his speech, the #1 hero of the country looked at our young Cambion, having a serious expression on his face. Please, young Midoriya, promise me you won't talk about this to anyone. All Might asked, wishing for his student to keep all the things he had told him a secret. I promise. The son of the radio demon responded, agreeing to do as his teacher requested. Thank you. The symbol of peace remercied, being glad to hear that Izuku was eager to keep his true form a secret. Now, I think you should go, young Midoriya. Young Hensushita has been worried sick for you, he suggested, remembering back how worried the disguised imp girl was for his well-being, surprising our dear hero with this. Really? Thank you for letting me know, All Might, Izuku thanked, being glad for his teacher sharing this information with him. Then, he moved his head and looked at Recovery Girl, wanting to know if she approved of him leaving the nurse's office. May I go now? He queried the nurse of the school. Yes, you can. Just come back tomorrow, okay? Recovery Girl said, letting her latest patient leave the room. Okay. Our young Cambion answered, agreeing to do the action the nurse requested him with the following day. After the conversation ended, our protagonist stood up from the hospital bed, grabbed his old-fashioned microphone that was next to the bed with his right hand, put his hat on his head, and walked up to the entrance of the nurse's office, touching its handle with his right hand and sliding the door to the left, thus opening it and allowing him and his shadowy helper to exit the room. Then, Izuku moved forward and stepped out of the room, closing the door behind his back once Shadow left the room as well, leaving All Might and Recovery Girl in the nurse's office. He seems to be a decent boy, isn't he? The nurse of the #1 hero high school noted. Yes, he is. All Might responded, sharing the opinion of Recovery Girl, thinking that with the sharing of his secret about his true form with Izuku, there was one extra reason for our protagonist to become even more important to him. Once leaving the room, with his shadowy friend, Izuku proceeded to walk in the direction of his classroom, passing through the hallway that was lightened up by the light of the setting sun, which signaled the end of the day to our protagonist, and wanting to go there to join his classmates. Desiring to assure his best imp friend that he was all right due to thought of her being in the classroom, all the while still thinking about whether he was worthy of knowing his role model's secret or that. and preparing himself to the reactions of his demonic family members, teacher, and friends when they would see him in such a condition. As he walked through the hallway, out of nowhere, an exclamation was released behind Izuku's back, making him get out of his thoughts. Zuzu, a person with a voice our protagonist knew too well, shouted behind his back, resulting in him and Shadow turning their heads and bodies around, wishing to see the one who let out the exclamation. And when they did this, they saw the first demonic friend of our young overlord, Melo, running towards them, being behind them possibly due to exiting the girls' locker room not long ago, wearing her high school uniform on her body, and holding the case that she kept her hero costume in with her right hand. Seeing his friend in front of him, Izuku morphed a smile on his face, moving his jaw muscles and starting to speak. "Oh, hi, Hensashida." The son of the radio demon greeted with a smile, saying hi to his best imp friend and referring to her by the name she requested him to call her by as she got closer and closer to him with each passing moment. But as the disguised imp girl reached our young Cambion's location, she did something that Izuku didn't expect. She hugged him, causing our protagonist to heat up from embarrassment, which soon vanished due to being used to his first demonic friend embracing him with hugs when she met up with him. "Thanks Satan, you're all right," Melo said as her worry disappeared by seeing her best friend in one piece, being glad for him not being in a worse condition. "That explosive asshole got you real good, didn't he?" she questioned as she released her friend from her hug and observed the injured left forearm of her best friend, still blaming herself for him suffering this injury. "Well, I tried not to get too injured, but look at the bright side, we won," Izuku reminded cheerfully, trying to assure his friend that he was fine, who, despite seeing her friend in one piece, didn't acquire a relieved smile on her face. Instead, she had a face that radiated sadness and regret, not having any sign of her regular happy personality. "I'm sorry." The imp girl with a human disguise apologized, moving her head downwards and witnessing the floor with her eyes, making Izuku obtain a confused expression on his face. "For what?" our protagonist inquired in confusion, not understanding what his first demonic friend was apologizing for. "It was my fault you got hurt during the exercise in the first place. If you're angry at me, I understand," Melo stated as she crossed her arms in sadness, feeling responsible for her best friend getting hurt. "Why would I be angry at you? I'm actually grateful for you," Izuku stated happily, then continued. "You did your part of my plan perfectly and thanks to you and Uraraka, we won the exercise," he declared, attempting to cheer his best imp friend he had known for a decade. "But," the disguised imp girl started, looking up from the floor and setting her eyes upon her best friend. "Listen, Hensashida, I'm not mad at you. You were in danger, I acted, and as I tried to save you, I got injured. There's no need for you to blame yourself," our dear hero assured as he put his left hand on Melo's right shoulder in a comforting manner, then went on with his speech. "Instead, you should think positively and see that without you or Uraraka's help, we couldn't have won the exercise," he requested. Saying all of this first demonic to assure her that it was not her fault he got hurt and to make her regain the smile she usually wore on her face. Which action, fortunately, was a success, being proven by the fact that Melo looked at him with a genuine smile on her face after he told this to her. "You're good with words, you know that?" Melo remarked, getting her grin back on her face. "Well, I guess I've learned one or two things in terms of pep talk from my dad," the son of the radio demon noted as he removed his left hand from Melo's right shoulder and scratched the back of his head with it, resulting in his friend releasing a giggle. "Then, I guess I should pay him a visit too. It has been almost a year since I last saw him," the disguised imp girl said as she began to walk in the direction of the classroom of Class 1A. "Oh, he would totally appreciate it if you visited him," Izuku replied, catching up with his friend and joining her in her journey in the meantime. "You could even meet Charlie and the others at the hotel. Everyone's so nice there," he declared, saying this due to despite the arguments between mostly Vaggie and Angel, everything was peaceful and everyone was helpful in the hotel. "I hope so, Zuzu, I hope so," Melo answered smilingly as she and her best friend proceeded to head in the direction of their classroom. All the while Shadow followed them and witnessed their conversation with delight, happy to see that they could support each other when one of them was down in the dumpster emotionally. A few minutes flew by and their vision got the attention of the sign that had the name of their class on it, and the enormous sliding door that separated the hallway from the classroom, thus signaling that they were close to their destination. As they got closer and closer to the entrance of their classroom, our young Cambion turned his head towards his best imp friend and opened his mouth, beginning to speak. "By the way, where are the others? Are they in the classroom?" Izuku wondered, desiring to know the location of his classmates. "Yeah, they probably are, and I think they're quite busy with the little surprise we found right now," Melo explained as she, Izuku, and Shadow arrived at the front door of the classroom, confusing her best friend with this reply of hers. "Surprise? What do you mean?" our dear hero asked with pure confusion on his face as Shadow went back into his hideout and disappeared from sight, with the son of the radio demon touching the handle of the door with his left hand in the process. "Well," Melo started as our young Cambion began to unlock the door, not being sure how to explain to her friend that their classmates accidentally discovered fat nuggets, not knowing about Kiki's existence due to her being in her key form when Gyro found her, and the demonic pet pig. She was about to tell him what that certain surprise was when Izuku opened the door wide enough for both him and the disguised imp girl to enter the room, drawing the attention of one of the male students nearby. "Oh, Midoriya and Hensashida are here," the spiky, red-haired male student announced, gaining the attention of his nearby classmates, who shifted their focus from him to the trio being findable in the entrance of the classroom. "You did a good job out there," he remarked, then continued, "Man, I don't know what you were saying during the match, but you were truly fired up," the teenager boy told to our protagonist with a smile on his face, surprising him with this note of his. "I can't believe you fought evenly with Bakugou and you managed to beat him," the male adolescent with elbows that had the shape of cylindrical tape dispensers noted, taking aback the son of the radio demon even more. "You did a good job in dodging and fighting," the pink-skinned girl commented cheerfully, making Izuku look at her for a moment. "Seeing you guys in the first match like that, we tried to give it our all too," a muscular teenager boy with short, spiky brown hair and with huge, thick lips remarked, surprising Izuku even more. "You were far elegant, but," the blonde-haired boy with the navel laser started, but was interrupted in his speech by the pink-skinned adolescent girl. "You did a good job in dodging and fighting," the same girl with pink-colored skin and hair noted excitedly and delightfully, jumping up and down in excitement, resulting in our young Cambion flattening his ears and tail a bit and manifesting blush on his cheeks from embarrassment, not being used to be the center of attention. "I'm Ijiro Kirishima," the spiky, red-haired male teenager replied, introducing with a confident smirk on his face. "We're all going over the training together right now," he said as he looked at the short, black-haired adolescent boy next to him, pointing his left thumb at him. "I'm Hantashiro," the teenager boy with the cylindrical tape dispensers told our dear hero, referring to himself as Shiro Hanta. "I'm Yuga Ayaya," the blonde-haired male teenager with a navel laser started, wishing to introduce himself just like his classmates, but was stopped in his speech by the same pink-skinned, pink-haired teenager girl. "I'm Mina Ashido," the pink-skinned girl stated joyfully, referring to herself as Mina Ashido. "You did a great job dodging and fighting," she said, repeating the same sentence she told to Izuku 2 times, then went on with her speech. "And your shadow did a good job too," Ashido commented cheerfully, filled with excitement, taking the shadowy helper of the son of the radio demon aback with this remark of hers. Hearing the kind comment of the pink-skinned girl, came out of his shadow form and positioned his pitch-black body at the left side of his master, presenting himself to the group of students and setting his eyes upon the girl in surprise, with Ashido observing him with delight in the process. In response to her nice remark, Shadow moved his body and wrapped it around Ashido's body like an anaconda around its prey, surprising her and the group of students and making our protagonist freak out. "Shadow," Izuku exclaimed in panic, then looked at his female classmate. I'm so sorry, Ashido. He's usually L like T this when he's H happy." He apologized in panic, fearing that his classmate would feel uncomfortable from the action of his shadowy friend. "It's okay, Midoriya, I don't mind," Ashido assured, then continued. "In fact, it feels really nice," she stated, setting her eyes upon the shadowy companion of our protagonist with a sweet, joyful smile on her face, with Shadow witnessing her with a happy expression on his pitch-black face, causing Izuku to calm down after seeing and hearing his female classmate didn't feel uncomfortable at all. "I'm Tsuyu Isui. You can call me Tsu." The adolescent girl introduced herself as Shadow released a Shido from his grip, referring to herself as Tsuyu Isui. "I'm Sato," the thick-lipped boy said, introducing himself to Izuku, who, during all this, was unable to speak due to being overwhelmed by the sudden attention he received from his classmates. "I'm Minta," the purple-haired, tiny male teenager stated as he jumped into the air between the group of students and our trio, surprising them a bit and referring to himself as Minta. All the while Melo just observed the situation with a smile that radiated joy on her face, being delighted to witness her best friend finally getting the attention from others he deserved. As this event unfolded, Izuku continued to be overwhelmed by the attention of his classmates, and his classmates told remarks how Minta performed during the lesson, which was bad, with the blonde-haired even trying to earn the attention of our young Cambion by telling him his name, which was Yuga Aoyama Tokoyami. The dark purple-haired girl and a boy with short, blonde hair and a tail observed the whole scene, with the former opening his mouth and beginning to speak. "You're too loud," the raven-haired student remarked bluntly, although feeling happiness towards his friend for getting the attention of his classmates. "Tokoyami!" Ida exclaimed as he ran towards Tokoyami and the members of the trio he was part of at that moment. "It is not respectful to sit on the desk," he declared, performing his usual robotic movements with his hands in the process. "It's not that big of a deal, is it?" Kyoka questioned, taking the ex-Sumi student with her question. "What's with those hands, anyway?" the blonde-haired adolescent boy wondered, pointing at the engine quirk user's hands with his left index finger. "You don't understand," Ida started. "I cannot let you disrespect the desks that our upperclassmen once used," he demanded, moving his hands in the same manner he did moments ago. All the while the group of students, Melo, Izuku just watched the whole scene in silence, with the disguised imp girl just rolling her eyes at him due to him being always taking everything too seriously, and our young overlord morphing an awkward smile, knowing that the engine quirk user never wavered, no matter the situation. As the ex-Sumi student said, out of nowhere, the dark purple-haired girl felt something touching her left hand, resulting in her looking down and placing her attention on Fat Nuggets snuggling to her leg cutely, growing fond of her immediately and not leaving her side ever since she had found him, with the only exception being the time she had her battle. Seeing the pet of Hell's most famous gay porn star, Ida shifted his attention from the trio and focused it on Fat Nuggets, continuing to talk. "And pick that pig up from the floor. We cannot let it stain the floor that our upperclassmen once walked on," the engine quirk demanded, drawing the attention of our protagonist and his first demonic friend, with the former gaining a confused look and the latter acquiring a worried expression on her face. "Wait, pig?" Izuku queried with confusion and nervousness, which he tried to hide as much as he could, fearing that his classmates might have discovered the two pets he accidentally brought inside the school. "During the first match, we found a pig in the monitor room," Kirishima explained to our young Cambion, then went on with his speech, "since we don't know who his owner is or he got inside the school. All Might suggested taking him back to the classroom until we find his owner," he stated as he moved aside from Izuku, allowing him, Melo, and Shadow to witness the demonic pet pig, with the former becoming absolutely shocked once he saw him near one of his classmates. "Fat Nuggets?" the son of the radio demon exclaimed in shock, taken aback by the fact that the hellish pet pig was present in the room, surprising the students of Class 1A with this sudden exclaim of his and making them look at him. Hearing the voice of the person whom cookies he consumed, Fat Nuggets turned his head away from Kyoka and set his eyes upon Izuku, letting out a happy squeak when he saw him and beginning to run towards him in excitement, with our protagonist doing the same physical action, followed by his shadowy companion. Once he was close enough, Izuku bent his legs and crouched down to Fat Nuggets' level, which activity the hellish pet pig responded to by jumping into the arms of our dear hero, allowing him to hug him. "Dieu merci, tu vas bien," Izuku said in relief, taking aback all the students present with him suddenly speaking French, especially the teenager boy with the navel laser. "What are you doing out here?" "I told you to stay in my backpack," he stated, reminding Fat Nuggets to what he said that day, with the pig just releasing a cute squeak as an answer and snuggling to our young overlord's body. "Wait, you can speak in French?" Aoyama asked in surprise, shocked to find out that he was not the only one who spoke the language. Yeah, our protagonist replied, then continued. My dad can speak French fluently. I got so interested in the language that I wanted to learn it by myself. He explained, remembering back to the times when he tested his French by having a conversation with either his father or his uncle. Well, that, mon ami, is true elegance. The blonde-haired boy with the naval laser remarked, being impressed by Izuku knowing the French language. Merci. Izuku remercied as his classmates watched the whole scene in silence, not understanding the French parts at all. Then, our protagonist turned his head and placed his attention on the dark purple-haired adolescent girl, opening his mouth and proceeding to speak once again. Thank you for looking out for him, he thanked, but stopped in his speech due to not knowing the name of the girl. Gyro. Kyoka Gyro. Kyoka said, introducing herself. Oh, right. Thank you for keeping him safe, Gyro. The son of the radio demon remercied, being grateful for her keeping an eye on the demonic pet pig. You're welcome. The dark purple-haired female student answered, not being used to having a talk with the opposite sex. So, Fat Nuggets, is he yours? The spiky, red-haired male student questioned, taken aback by the name of the pig, resulting in our protagonist shifting his attention from Kyoka and focusing it on him. Well, not exactly, Izuku responded, then turned his head in the direction of Shadow and extended his right hand towards him, wishing him to hold his old-fashioned mic for a bit. Seeing his master in need of his aid, the shadowy friend of our young Cambion extended both of his hands and touched the vintage microphone of his master with them, taking it out of his hands and proceeding to hold it, just like his master wished him to do. After this, Izuku grabbed Fat Nuggets with both of his hands, holding him properly. Then, he moved his legs and stood up to his full height, putting the hellish pet pig on the desk that was positioned on the right side of Takoyami. Once he was done with this, he placed his attention on Kirishima once again, continuing his speech. He's actually a pet of one of my friends. Our young overlord revealed as he fully turned towards his red, spiky-haired classmate, showing his back to Fat Nuggets. When I was leaving the hotel where my dad works at, he smelled the cookies my aunt made for me, and he accidentally got into my backpack. He explained as he scratched the back of his head with his left hand in awkwardness, and the pet of Angeldust noticed his tail under his hero costume, worrying that his aunt would become sad when she found out he didn't a single on from the sweets she baked for him. Your dad works at a hotel? Ashido questioned with a mixture of surprise and curiosity. Yeah, he's actually the facility manager of the place, Izuku clarified, smiling in the process. Really? Then he must be very busy, Kirishima remarked. Yeah, he is. Our young Cambion confirmed smilingly, reminding himself of the fact that despite being busy with the handling of the hotel, his father, aunt, and uncle assisted him in making his dream come true, which he was very, very grateful for. As he remembered back to the 10-month-long training he had with his demonic family members, a sudden pain struck him, his tail, to be precise, causing him to exclaim a bit in pain and put his hands on the location his tail was findable, taking aback his classmates and best imp friend with this action of his. Midoriya, are you all right? Kirishima asked, worrying for his classmate, sharing the same emotion with Melo. Yes, I'm fine. I'm kind of used to it, Izuku assured as he endured the pain in his tail and grabbed the lower part of his costume, pulling it upwards and revealing Fat Nuggets having his tail inside his mouth, munching on it as he hung down from it. Surprising everyone, including Melo, who didn't know about this due to not being present when it first happened. It's just his habit, he stated, then continued. When he's hungry, he always thinks that my tail is food and tries to eat it, our dear hero explained as he attempted to ignore the pain. All the while Kyoka tried to hold her laughter back, finding the whole scene funny not because her classmate was hurt, but due to thinking how silly it was for the hellish pet pig to think her classmate's tail was something edible. Hanzashida, could you please help me out? He inquired from his first demonic friend, witnessing her in the process. On it. The imp girl with a human disguise answered as she put her suitcase down, running to her best friend and grabbing the demonic pet pig with her hand, carefully removing him from Izuku's tail and putting him back on the desk. Thank you, Hanzashida. The son of the radio demon remercied as he let go of the lower part of his costume, scratching the part of his body where his tail was with his right hand, attempting to make the pain vanish. I didn't know you had a tail too, Midoriya. The adolescent boy with blonde hair and a tail remarked, causing Izuku, Melo, Shadow, and Fat Nuggets to turn their heads in his direction. I thought I was the only one in the class who had one, he noted. Well, I have had it since my quirk manifested, so I'm quite used to having it, Izuku replied. Trust me, I get it. I, too, have had it since my quirk appeared. The blonde-haired teenager boy answered, having a smile on his face in the process. I'm just glad I'm not the only one, he noted. Well, I'm happy to hear that. Our dear hero started, stopping in his speech due to not having knowledge of the boy's name. Myheroacademia, nice to meet you, the blonde-haired boy with a tail said, referring to himself as Myheroacademia. Nice to meet you too, Ajiro, Izuku said, being happy to get to know another classmate of his. Oh, I almost forgot, Kyoka said as she successfully resisted laughing at Fat Nuggets' silly action, keeping the smile she formed during that event and gaining the attention of our young overlord. When I found Fat Nuggets, I found this in his mouth, she stated as she reached into her right pocket, pulling Kiki, who was still in her key form, out of it. I don't know where he got it from, so I kept it in my pocket until we decided what to do with it, the dark purple-haired girl explained, then continued, but since you know Fat Nuggets, I assume this key belongs to you too, isn't it? She asked as she showed the one-eyed cat in her key form off to her classmate, offering him a chance to get it back. At first, Izuku just looked at the key with confusion, not knowing what to do with it due to the fact that he had never seen it. But as he gave the key a bit closer look, and he noticed that the pet of the Princess of Hell was not present, he soon realized that the key was Kiki, coming to this conclusion due to having the information of her being able to turn into the key of the hotel. Once recognizing that the key was the pet cat of his royal friend in disguise, our young Cambion morphed a small smile on his face and extended his right hand towards Kyoka's right hand, wishing to get his hands on Kiki and talking in the process. Yes, it is. Thank you, Gyro, Izuku thanked as he took the key out of the dark purple-haired girl's hand with his right hand, putting it inside his right pocket. You're welcome, Kyoka answered with a smile on her face, which was the prettiest smile Izuku had ever seen, making him blush. Noticing this, Melo formed a smirk on her face almost immediately, already planning to tease Izuku because of his blush. As this event unfolded, Uraraka and a yellow-haired adolescent walked into the classroom through a back door that was findable in the classroom, both of them holding a bunch of books with blue covers in their hands. While they entered the classroom, the boy invited her for a meal and inquired about what kind of dish she liked, attempting to hit on her. The brown-haired girl was about to respond to his question, when, from the corner of her eyes, she noticed the presence of our protagonist, resulting in her shifting her attention from the boy next to her and rushing in the direction of Izuku. Deku, the zero-gravity quirk user exclaimed, running towards Izuku while trying not to drop the books in her hands, gaining his attention and helping his blush disappear. All the while the yellow-haired boy released a sigh of defeat. Not being able to invite her for a meal. How's your arm? She wondered with worry in her voice, reaching the location of her friend as she performed this action. It's a bit banged up, but I can handle it, Izuku assured, trying to calm his friend down. But as he spoke to her, something caught his attention. In the seat of his bully, there was no one. Bakugou was nowhere to be seen. Not even his backpack was findable on his chair. Of course, since it was near the end of the day, he could have easily left the building and decided to go home, but Izuku needed confirmation. So, in order to get that, he decided to ask the brown-haired adolescent girl about it, moving his jaw muscles and proceeding to speak. Uraraka, where's Kaken? The son of Radio Demon questioned, observing the empty seat of his childhood friend as he asked this. We tried to stop him, but he went home just now without any explanation, Uraraka explained, confirming the assumption of our young overlord. I see. Thank you, Uraraka, Izuku remercied, then turned around and jolted out of the classroom, wishing to get to his bully's location as soon as possible before he left the territory of the school. Deku, where are you going? Uraraka inquired from our young Cambion in surprise as he left the classroom, sharing the same surprise with her classmates, with Izuku not hearing her question at all due to not being in the classroom at the time she asked this. Zuzu, wait, Melo shouted, running after her best friend, with Shadow following her in this act as well. Witnessing the one who unintentionally brought him and his pet friend into the world of mortals, Fat Nuggets attempted to go after our young overlord too, attempting to jump off the desk in order to accomplish that activity. Seeing him jump down from the desk, Kyoka quickly reached out for him and caught him with her hands, not wishing him to hurt his tiny pig body with the fall. Then, she safely put the hellish pet pig down on the floor, which Fat Nuggets thanked by delightfully squeaking at her. After this, he moved his tiny pig legs and ran out of the classroom, trying to catch up with the trio who had just left the classroom. By the time the pet of hell's most famous gay porn star left the classroom, our trio was at the stairs, with Izuku already going down on it, desiring to catch up with the spiky, blonde-haired as fast as possible. And with Melo and Shadow following him and being located just a few steps away from him, with our protagonist doing all of this for one single reason. He wanted to tell him something important. He wanted to tell him that he didn't lure him into a trap because he underestimated him. He wanted to assure him that he didn't see him as a fool just because he didn't use his quirk on him at the beginning of the match. But he knew by just telling this to him, Bakugou wouldn't even listen to him. He needed to tell him something that could grab his attention. And what better way to do that than telling him that he was the son of a powerful demon? Of course, it was a very risky choice from his side to tell him this secret. But Izuku felt like tricking him like that during the exercise. He deserved to know. So, with this decision in his mind, he decided to increase his speed a bit, wishing to get to the explosion quirk user location before he went home. As he thought about this, he reached the ground floor of UA and rushed to the entrance of the building, grabbing the door handle with his right hand and pushing it down, unlocking the door and letting him exit the building. Once he opened the door, he stepped out of the main building of the #1 hero high school of his country and stopped in his tracks, beginning to look for his childhood friend and allowing his first demonic friend and shadowy companion to finally catch up to him. He didn't need to search for long. In the middle of the pathway that led to the building, the spiky, blonde-haired male teenager was findable, keeping his blue-colored backpack on his left shoulder and walking towards the gates of the school, thus getting closer and closer to leaving the school's territory. Seeing his childhood friend in the middle of leaving the school's location, our dear hero opened his mouth and proceeded to speak, desiring to stop Bakugou in his movement. "Kaken," Izuku shouted, wanting to get the explosion quirk user's attention. Despite being called by name, the spiky, blonde-haired adolescent boy didn't stop not even for a second, making our dear protagonist move his legs and jolt towards his bully, with the imp girl with a human disguise and shadowy companion following him. "Kaken, wait!" Izuku exclaimed as he ran in the direction of the explosion quirk user, causing him to stop in his walking. "Deku, fiery bitch," Bakugou said in a cold tone as he turned his head around, setting his pawn on the group and scaring Izuku with his tone, resulting in him, Melo, and Shadow stopping in their tracks. "What the F did you just call me?" the disguised imp girl questioned with anger, being enraged by the insult, sharing the same anger with the shadowy friend of our young champion. "What do you want?" the explosion quirk user queried from our protagonist, ignoring the rageful gaze of Melo. All the while Izuku placed his vision on the ground, attempting to gather as much encouragement as he could. He didn't tell this secret to anyone. But for tricking him into a trap during their battle, our young overlord thought that he deserved to know. "There's one thing I feel I have to tell you." The son of the radio demon confessed, "My quirk is not normal." He revealed, surprising the disguised imp girl with this due to being about to reveal such a secret to his bully. "I can't tell you why, but all I can tell is that it's not ordinary," Izuku said as irritation began to manifest in Bakugou's body, then went on with his speech. "At first, it was difficult for me to use my quirk, but with the help of my loved ones, I learned how to control it. Without them and their help, I wouldn't be here and I would still be a useless nobody, just like you said throughout all these years," he stated gloomily as he flattened his ears and tail in sadness, belittling, while the frustration the explosion quirk user possessed grew larger, having enough of the nerds talking. "Zuzu," Melo started with sadness in her eyes, which was shared by Shadow as well, not wishing for her best friend to look down on himself. "Today, I could beat you, but only because I got lucky," Izuku remarked as his sadness vanished, with it being replaced with determination. But next time, I'll go certain, he said as he raised his head and removed his vision from the ground, setting his eyes upon Bakugo. And I'll use all my strength to defeat you, he declared as he straightened his ears and tail, witnessing his bully with bravery, showing no signs of fear towards him, making Melo look at her best friend in pride, being proud of him for saying this to his bully. All the while Fat Nuggets got to the location of the group, positioning himself between Izuku and Melo. To the son of the radio demon's shock, his childhood friend didn't say a single word after hearing his statement, just stared at him in silence, causing him to look at the pathway and to acquire worry inside his body. Hoping that the spiky, blonde-haired teenager boy didn't misinterpret his intentions and didn't assume that he wanted to declare war between them instead of just assuring him that he didn't underestimate him. This unnerving silence was cut short when the explosion quirk user opened his mouth and began to talk, gaining the attention of the group. "What the hell are you talking about?" Bakugo questioned as Fully turned his body around, facing our group with it and making Izuku set his eyes upon him once again. "Not ordinary? You're talking nonsense," he remarked, then continued. "What are you trying to do? Make me out to be more of a fool than you already have? What are you trying to say?" the spiky, blonde-haired queried. "Today, I lost to you," he started, with anger beginning to grow inside his body. "That's all it was. That's all," the explosion quirk user remarked as the rage increased in him. "As I watched the ice guy, I realized I had no chance against him," he declared, remembering back how easily the red and white-haired male adolescent ended the second battle in just a single minute. "Damn it! I even had to agree with what that ponytail girl said. Damn it, damn it, damn it!" Bakugo said as his rage reached its peak, starting to throw a fit. "Hey, listen to me, Deku," he told to the nerd he had been terrorizing for 10 whole years, clenching his left hand into a fist. "You're gonna pay for this, you hear me?" the spiky, blonde-haired warned as tears of frustration began to form in the corner of his eyes, surprising our young Cambion, his best imp friend, and his shadowy helper with this. "I'll become number 1 and I'll show you that I'm better than you," he declared, resulting in Izuku adopting a determined expression on his face, acknowledging the statement of his bully. Then, Bakugo proceeded to turn around and continue his journey towards the main gate of the top hero academy of the country, wiping his tears away with his right hand as he did this. "You won't beat me again, bastard," the explosion quirk user stated as he headed towards the main gates of UA High, intending to leave the territory of the school. Once his childhood friend was far enough, our young overlord released a sigh of relief, calming down after knowing that the explosion quirk user didn't believe a single word he used, thus preventing the reveal of hell and his demonic origins from him. After he sighed, the disguised imp girl put her left hand on his right shoulder in a comforting manner, forming a smile on her face and making her best friend look at her. "This was a risky choice, Zuzu," Melo remarked as her smile disappeared for a short moment, acquiring a bit of seriousness in her voice. "I know, but after what I did to him during our exercise, I thought he deserved to know," he confessed, still feeling bad for tricking his bully like that, resulting in his first demonic friend adopting worry in her body, not being sure if her best friend did the right thing with this or not. As this conversation went on, suddenly, the symbol of peace, who was in muscular form, exited the main building of UA, jolting towards the spiky, blonde-haired student and rushing past our group. "Here I come," All Might shouted as he ran past the group with such speed that it almost knocked them over, rushing in the direction of Bakugo. "Young Bakugo," he said as he reached the explosion quirk user's location and grabbed his shoulders with his hands, thus not allowing to step forward and go in the direction of the main gate. "Just so you know, pride is important," the number 1 hero remarked, then continued. "You definitely have the abilities needed to become a pro. But you still have a lot to," he stated, but out of nowhere, he was interrupted in his monologue by his student he wished to aid with his advice. "Let go of me, All Might," Bakugo demanded, causing the symbol of peace to look at him. "I'll become a hero that surpasses even you without you telling me," he declared, taking the number 1 hero of Japan back with his statement and causing him to release his grip on his shoulders. Once he was free from the grip of his teacher, Bakugo moved his legs and walked in the direction of the main gate, wishing to get out of the area of the school as soon as possible. All the while All Might witnessed him in this act in silence. Well, he got over it pretty quickly. Melo noted in surprise, taken aback by how easily the bully of her best friend was done with all of this, sharing the same surprise with her best friend and the shadowy friend of her friend, who was still holding the vintage mic of his master in his hands. "I see you find your pet pig, young Midoriya," the number one hero said as he walked up to our group and observed Fat Nuggets, resulting in all members of the group setting their eyes upon him. "Well, he's not mine," Izuku declared, then continued, "He's actually the pet of one of my friends. He just accidentally got into my backpack," he explained as he formed a shy smile on his face, scratching the back of his head with his right hand in awkwardness. "I see," All Might responded, then continued, "Well then, I suggest you change back into your uniform and take him back to his owner before the sun goes down. He must be very worried for him by now," he suggested, resulting in our protagonist realize that by this point, Angeldust and Vaggie must have been worried sick for the two pets of the hotel due to absolutely not knowing their location. "Okay," our dear hero replied, taking the advice of his teacher. With this, Izuku turned around and began to walk back towards the main building of UA, wishing to get to the dressing room that was for the boys and change back into his school uniform, with the imp girl with a human disguise, his shadowy friend, and the pet of the famous gay porn star accompanying him in this journey. Once our young Cambion reached the entrance of the main building, opened its door, and stepped inside the building, with his best imp friend, his shadowy helper, and the demonic pet pig following him in this act. He decided to go up the stairs and go back to the floor where his classroom was located, desiring to get to the same locker room where he left his clothes. Once he got to that floor and arrived at the front door of the dressing room, Izuku decided to unlock the door by moving its handle down, allowing him to enter the locker room. With Shadow getting inside as well due to wishing to help his master get changed, and with Melo choosing to stay outside the room due to her not being the sex the room was meant for and deciding to look out for Fat Nuggets until her best friend finished getting dressed up into his school uniform. After thanking his friend for this kind gesture and stepping inside and closing the door once his shadowy friend was inside too, our protagonist walked up to his closet and unlocked it, taking his uniform, suitcase, and medium-sized, bluish, grayish bag out of it, putting them on the bench, including his hat, which he took off of his head to make him take his clothes off easier, pulled Kiki, who was still in his key form, next to his hat, and began to take off his clothes, placing his damaged hero costume into the suitcase it was originally kept. Then, he dressed up into his high school uniform and unzipped his bag, positioning his hat, ray gun, and old-fashioned microphone, which he took out of Shadow's hands and thanked him for holding it for him, and all the objects he received from his demonic friends inside it, zipping it and grabbing it with his right hand and his briefcase with his left hand, walking towards the entrance of the dressing room. Once he reached it, in an attempt to assist his master, Shadow opened the door for the son of the radio demon, which action Izuku was very grateful for, allowing the both of them to step out of the room. After Izuku and Shadow exited the room and joined Melo and Fat Nuggets, the group decided to head back to their classroom, wishing to get their stuff and get back to their homes. A few minutes passed, and they arrived at the classroom of Class 1A, with the entrance being wide open, letting the members of the group get inside the classroom without any difficulties. When they stepped inside the classroom, Izuku and Melo saw that their classmates were putting their backpacks on their bags, being done reviewing the results of the matches, and planning to go back to their homes. Our dear hero and his best imp friend were no different. Once Melo got her hands on her briefcase once again, she and her best friend put them back on the shelves that came out of the wall and grabbed their backpacks, with Izuku placing the demonic feline disguised as a black key and the hellish pet pig inside it carefully and not closing the backpack fully, thus allowing Fat Nuggets to breathe fresh air during his time in the backpack and putting them on their backs. After this, they walked up to the trio that consisted of Uraraka, Ida, and Tokoyami, joining them, with Dark Shadow even coming out of the raven-headed student's body in order to greet his shadowy friend with a fist bump, which Shadow returned with his own fist bump. And with all of them present, the group decided to leave the territory of the school and go to the nearest train station, just like they did the previous day. During their journey, they spent most of their time chatting between themselves, mostly about that day's hero lesson and the matches and events that happened during that. with Tokoyami even expressing his surprise about his friend being able to summon others people's shadows, and with the disguised imp girl, the zero-gravity quirk user, and the ex-Sumi student discussing their battle and the exercises of their other classmates, with Melo dropping a few curse words in the process, resulting in her and the engine quirk user getting into a short argument each time a bad word left her mouth. As they were chatting, they arrived at the train station and entered it, causing everyone to say their goodbyes to one another, with the two shadowy beings doing the same and vanishing from sight, and boarded the trains they needed, with the only exception being Melo, who, after the rest of the group left, exited the train station, walked into the closest alleyway where no one could see her, and used her Asmodean crystal to open a temporary portal between Earth and Hell, stepping inside it and going back to the realm that served as her one true home, with the portal closing as soon as he entered it, thus preventing any human to unintentionally get into the realm of suffering. While these events transpired, back in the building of UA, the head of the school, Principal Nezu, was checking back the several camera footages on his computer that were filmed during that day, wishing to know what activities the students did that day and desiring to know if there was someone doing something irregular, such as skipping class. But as he checked all of the recordings, something caught his attention. Something that really surprised him, and he never expected to see. And it even got more interesting for him when he saw the person, or rather people, who were involved in the phenomenon. Interesting, Nezu told to himself, then leaned forward the microphone that was connected to all the speakers that were placed in the main building of UI, opening his mouth and proceeding to speak into the mic. Mr. Aizawa, you are needed in the principal's office immediately, he requested through the speaker, then moved away from the microphone and focused his attention on the camera footages on the screen of his computer, patiently waiting for his colleague. He didn't need to for long. Just a few minutes later, the sliding door of his office room was opened, revealing the eraser hero behind it, wearing his hero costume and stepping inside the room, closing the door behind his back once he was fully inside, and setting his eyes on the principal of the school. What it is, Nezu? Aizawa questioned Nezu with tiredness in his eyes, having enough of this day and just wanting to sleep. I want to show you something, the principal of Japan's #1 hero high school stated, confusing the homeroom teacher of Class 1A with this statement of his. Regardless, Eraserhead moved his legs and began to approach the principal, all the while Nezu continued his speech. While I was checking back the camera footage, I found this, Nezu explained as Aizawa reached him, setting his eyes on the computer screen, desiring to know what the employer wanted to show him. And when he performed this action, he witnessed something he had never expected to see. On one of the camera footages, which was recorded earlier the day and was paused at that moment, a pet pig with a bit unusual coloration and spikes on his backside was located, accompanied by a black-furred, long-tailed, one-eyed feline, flying after the pig, wishing to keep up with him as they ran seemingly in the direction of the exit of the building. Unknowingly to Aizawa, he was looking at Kiki and Fat Nuggets, the two pets of the Hazbin Hotel. A pig and a flying cat? The Eraser hero quizzed with a mixture of confusion inside him, completely taken aback by what he saw. Yes, indeed, Nezu replied, confirming what his colleague saw was real. And what does this have to do with me? Aizawa questioned in confusion, still a bit shocked by seeing such animals in the territory of the school. Well, as I checked back all the footage they appeared on, I spotted two of your students being very close to the pig, the rodent principal declared as he showed two other camera footages, with one presenting the time when Izuku and Melo were speaking with All Might outside the building, and the other showing Melo being positioned at the men's dressing room, accompanied by Fat Nuggets, waiting for her best friend to change back into his school uniform, shocking the long, black-haired teacher even more. Midoriya and Hensashita, the Eraser hero queried in surprise, taken aback by two of his students being involved in this. Yes, indeed, Nezu answered. What should we do with them? Should we ask them about this? Aizawa asked, wishing to know more about this whole situation. No, not yet. The principal of UA said it would be too sudden, he stated, then continued, just pretend we didn't notice a thing, and after some time, we will ask them about this, okay? Nezu suggested, thinking that it would be too suspicious if they questioned the two students about this right away. All right, Eraserhead replied, agreeing to go along with the suggestion of the principal, although with not much enthusiasm. He started to get tired of this. First, there were these mysterious murder cases where there were no traces left behind by the culprits, thus making him solve these crimes very hard and frustrate him. Then, there was our protagonist came into the picture with his very strange quirk, which consisted of abilities that didn't have any kind of connection to one another. Yet, he had those powers. And now, there were these out-of-ordinary pet animals who had a connection to our dear hero and his first demonic friend. Because of this, he decided to continue keeping an eye on Izuku, with him doing the same thing with Melo, wanting to get the truth behind all of this as soon as possible. Meanwhile, as this event unfolded in UA, Izuku exited the train and left the train station, taking a walk back to the apartment he, his mother, and his shadowy helper lived in, with Shadow accompanying him in this journey. Reaching its location in 15 minutes. Once reaching the apartment complex and going up the stairs, the son of the radio demon grabbed the door handle of the entrance of the apartment with his right hand and moved it downwards, unlocking it and allowing him and Shadow to enter the apartment. Once getting inside the apartment, Izuku shut the door behind his back once both he and his shadowy companion took his shoes off and greeted his mother, attempting to calm her down after she discovered his injured, bandaged forearm, only telling her that he got injured during the hero lesson, and not revealing that Bakugou was the reason he got hurt due to not wanting to make her worry for him, and telling her that he would pay a visit for his father. Our dear hero headed towards his room and got inside it after he reached, with his shadowy helper following him in this act, putting his medium-sized bluish, grayish-colored bag and his yellow-colored backpack on his bed. Unzipping both of them and letting Fat Nuggets and Kiki, who was in her real cat form at this point, to exit the backpack and stretch a bit, with the latter levitating to him and landing on his left shoulder, snuggling to his face and purring in happiness. After this, the one-eyed cat got off of his left shoulder and landed on his bed next to the demonic pet pig. All the while the son of the radio demon removed all the things from the bluish, grayish bag and put them into their own respective places, undressing himself and putting his uniform back inside his closet and taking the clothes he usually wore when he visited his demonic family members, friends, and teacher out of it, putting every piece of clothing on his body. Then, he put the two pets back inside his backpack, zipped it, although not fully to let them have access to fresh air, put it on his back, grabbed his voodoo book, opened it, and chanted the words he needed, unlocking a portal between the fiery pits of hell and the mortal realm. With this, Shadow transformed into his shadow and Izuku stepped inside the portal, wishing to return the two pets to their own respective owners, with the portal closing after he entered it fully. At the other side of the portal, when he exited it, Izuku found himself inside the rehabilitation center of the Princess of Hell, in the lobby area to be more precise, allowing him and his shadowy friend, who came out of his hideout when his master stepped out of the portal completely, to observe their surroundings. The interior didn't change much, looking just like when our young Cambion left it. And it was not empty either. In the lobby, every member of the main cast, aside from Princess Charlotte, was foundable, being findable at the parlor area of the lobby. This didn't surprise Izuku. What he was surprised by was what the residents of the hotel were doing. In the middle of one of the sofas, the spider-based male sinner was sitting, crying, and covering his eyes with his upper hands, ruining his makeup with the former and possibly being devastated due to not knowing where his precious pet was. On his right side, surprisingly, the uncle of our dear hero was having a seat, while at his left side, the girlfriend of the Princess of Hell was located, both of them comforting Angel. In front of the sitting trio, the wannabe overlord, the aunt of our protagonist, and the radio demon were findable, with Niffty and Sirpentious observing the famous gay porn star with sadness, feeling bad for him for not being able to find Fat Nuggets for him, and with the cannibalistic serial killer acquiring his well-known wide grin on his face, casually enjoying the suffering of the spider-based male damned soul. When they heard the opening of the portal, all present residents turned their heads in the direction of Izuku and focused their attention on him, with Radio Loving performing this action joy, delighted to see his one and only son again. My dear boy, how delightful it is to see why, Alastor started with delight, but stopped in his speech when he saw a tiny part of the bandage on the injured forearm of his son sticking out from under his clothing, with the rest of the demons in the room noticing it as well. My dear boy, what happened to you? He questioned with actual worry in his voice as he, the cockroach-like female demon, and the notable kingpin rushed to Izuku's side, with his worry for his state being shared by the two other damned souls. Well, during the hero exercise, me and Kaken went a bit overboard. The son of the radio demon explained as he lifted his left arm up and pulled up the sleeve of his green pinstripe coat, revealing how much his forearm was wrapped around with the bandage, resulting in his aunt and father lose their worry and obtain a serious expression on their faces, with Alastor still keeping his iconic smile in the process. And because of that, my costume might have gotten damaged too, he added as he pulled the sleeve of his coat down and scratched the back of his head with his left hand awkwardly, taking aback his demonic teacher with this remark of his. "That's impossible," Sirpentious proclaimed, then continued. "The marvelous hero costume of my dear pupil shouldn't have been damaged by such an uneducated hooligan," he declared, being angry at the spiky, blonde-haired teenager boy for even daring to do such a thing. Well, I guess it's because I underestimated Kaken's firepower a bit," Izuku noted. "Then we must improve your costume," the notable kingpin announced. "Be prepared, my dear pupil, because we will make your costume like no other," he stated in an over-the-top performance manner as he looked at the ceiling and raised his right hand that he clenched into a fist. All the while his pupil just rolled his eyes while having a smile on his face, being used to his demonic sensei speaking like this, not telling him that they couldn't do that due to him not being allowed to leave the school's territory with his hero costume, but letting him be like this thanks to his demonic teacher just being his usual self. "My dear Niffty," the radio demon said, causing his son to set his eyes upon him. "Yes, Alastor?" Niffty asked with a serious tone, surprising her nephew with the tone of her voice. "Would you mind accompanying and assisting me in the torture of Bakugo?" Alastor inquired, truly desiring to punish Bakugo for harming his beloved son. "Oh, Tilda," the maid of the hotel cooed, then continued. "Can I maim him? Please, let me maim him," she demanded with enthusiasm, pulling a large knife out of her right pocket. "Oh, my dear Niffty, we will do so much more to him than just maiming him," the cannibalistic serial killer stated, making his servant friend even happier. "Yes," the cockroach-based female demon celebrated, filled with excitement, already imagining maiming and skinning the explosion quirk user alive for hurting her nephew like that. "Dad, Auntie, stop! You can't do that!" our young Cambion exclaimed in fright, attempting to stop his father and aunt from potentially murdering his childhood friend. Then, Izuku shifted his attention from his father and aunt and focused it on the trio sitting on the sofa, approaching them in the process. "What happened here?" he queried the moth-based female demon, asking this despite already knowing what the cause of Angel's sadness was. "Kiki and Fat Nuggets went missing," Vaggie revealed. "We've searched the whole hotel and the city for them, but we didn't find them," she explained, having worry on her face and going on comforting Hell's most famous gay adult film actor. "I think I know where they are," Izuku declared, confusing not only Vaggie, but the rest of the main cast with his statement. Then, he removed his backpack from his back and put it on the floor, crouching down, grabbing its zipper, and unzipping it, thus opening it. At the moment our dear hero opened the backpack fully, Fat Nuggets and Kiki stuck their heads to it, taking aback everyone in shock, especially the spider-like male sinner. "Fat Nuggets!" Angel cried out as he ran up to his pet, kneeling down to his level, taking him out of the yellow-colored backpack and embracing him with a big hug, crying in relief in the process, all the while his pet pig snuggled to his face in joy, delighted to reunite with his owner. "When I was leaving for school, Fat Nuggets might have sensed the cookies and accidentally fell through the portal and got into my backpack with Kiki," our young overlord explained, taking aback the residents even more with this reveal. "Well, that was unexpected," the girlfriend of the Princess of Hell commented, shocked by what the son of the radio demon said as the one-eyed feline flew out of the backpack and landed on her shoulder, snuggling to her face and purring happily, which Vaggie enjoyed. "Thanks for bringing them back, Izuku," she remercied, witnessing the son of the radio demon in the process. "You're welcome, Miss Vaggie," our young overlord replied, then continued. "I just wanted to bring them back as soon as possible," he stated smilingly as he stood up from his crouch, scratching the back of his head with his right hand sheepishly, resulting in Angel beginning to become agitated after he heard how happy tone his voice had. "So, you think this is a joke?" the gay porn star questioned as he put his pet pig down, rising up to his full height. All the while the hellish pet pig observed him with worry, and the others in the lobby set their eyes upon him. All the while Kiki got off Vaggie's shoulders and sat on the top back rail of the sofa, observing the situation with her singular eye. "What?" our young Cambion quizzed in confusion, not understanding what the gay porn star asked. "Ya think this is effing funny?" the spider-based demon queried as he walked to Izuku, then went on with his speech. "Ya think it is funny when you take someone's pet who's the only good effing thing in his shitty afterlife?" he queried angrily, grabbing the son of the radio demon by the collar and pulling him close to him. Izuku stuttered, being too scared to say anything, lowering his ears and tail in fright. "Tell me," Angel demanded with rage inside him as tears started to form in the corner of his eyes once again, being so angry that his other eyes, which looked like freckles, opened as well, witnessing our dear hero with them. "Angel," Alastor started with a distorted voice, making everyone in the lobby look at him. "Get your filthy hands off of my son before I rip all your limbs off and put your head on the wall of my room," he warned without moving his mouth as his pupils transformed into radio dials and voodoo symbols began to float around him. All the while Niffty grabbed her large knife tightly, obtaining a crazy expression, both of them ready to protect Izuku at all costs. "Whatever," the famous gay porn star remarked, releasing his grip on Izuku after he heard the radio demon's warning. After this, Angel turned around, picked fat nuggets up with his lower hands, and headed towards the hallway where his room was located, entering the hallway and disappearing from the vision of those who were present in the lobby. Izuku wanted to reach out for him with his injured hand, wishing to stop him and tell him that his intention of taking his pet just for fun was not true at all. But he couldn't, and because of this and due to making him feel this sad, our young overlord felt extremely bad and crossed his arms in gloominess, not being sure if he could ever make this mistake of his. Seeing him in such a saddened mood, both his dad and aunt lost their seriousness, with the former changing back into his normal form and replacing it with worry, with the former walking up to him and stopping his left side, putting his right hand on his son's left shoulder in a comforting manner and witnessing his son with his well-known smile full of sharp, yellow-colored teeth, causing Izuku to look at his father. This act was shared by moth-based female demon, who stood up from her seat and placed her left hand on his right shoulder in the same manner as the radio demon, observing him with an assuring smile on her face, making him set his eyes upon her. All the while Niffty and Sirpentious witnessed Izuku with a concerned expression on their faces, and Husk looked in the direction Angel went with anger, not liking how the famous gay porn star treated his nephew at all. As the comforting of our protagonist went on, suddenly, the front door of the hotel was opened, resulting in everyone turning their heads towards the entrance of the rehabilitation center. And when they did this, they saw the Princess of Hell herself entering the hotel, closing the door behind her back, and proceeding to walk inside the lobby, having a tired expression on her face, possibly from the meeting she had with the leader of the Angel Army. Witnessing the arrival of her beloved girlfriend, Vaggie removed her hand from Izuku's shoulder, with the radio-loving overlord doing the same act, and rushed to her girlfriend's side, speaking to her in the process. "Charlie," the moth-based female sinner exclaimed in happiness, running up to her girlfriend and embracing her with a hug. "How did it go? Did they listen?" she inquired smilingly, hoping that her girlfriend could persuade the angels to support their cause. "Oh, they sure did hear it, but, Princess Charlotte lied with an awkward smile, not desiring to tell her girlfriend that the leader of the Angel Army didn't give a shit about her dream and made fun of her. But as she was about to continue her speech, she noticed the presence of our dear hero and the residents of her hotel and the faces they had, resulting in her opening her mouth and proceeding to speak once again. "Hi, Izuku," Charlie greeted with a small smile on her face, delighted to see her young Cambion friend, not noticing the bandage on his left forearm under his dress. "Hi, Charlie," Izuku responded, seeing hi to his royal friend. "What happened here?" the Princess of Hell questioned her beloved girlfriend, wishing to know why everyone, with the exception of the radio demon and the anthropomorphic cat sinner, who went back into his usual, bored self, had a saddened face and why Angel was not present. "I'll tell you later," Vaggie answered. "Come on, we have something exciting to show you," she declared as she gently grabbed Charlie's hand and guided her in the direction. confusing both her and Izuku with this statement of hers. Hearing her remark, the cockroach-based female demon and the wannabe overlord followed the two lovers. With the former climbing up on the sofa, the bartender of the hotel was sitting and positioning herself on the left armrest of the sofa, setting her singular eye on the old-fashioned television, with the notable kingpin performing the same act, although sitting in front of the sofa instead of taking a seat on it, grabbing the remote of the vintage TV and pushing its turn-on button, activating the television. As the members of the main cast went to the parlor area of the lobby and took their seats, the radio demon focused his attention on his one and only son, opening his mouth and beginning to speak. "Come, my dear boy, have a seat," Alastor requested from his son, guiding him towards the parlor area. Going along with his father's request, Izuku approached the parlor with his father and sat down on the floor next to his demonic teacher. Alastor pulled some strings and it's about to air. The moth-based female demon noted as she and Charlie sat down on the sofa, positioning themselves between Husk and Niffty. "I pulled a few limbs too." The radio demon laughed in joy. "Wait, the commercial? You all made a new one?" Charlie quizzed in surprise, sharing the same surprise with our young overlord. "Yes, my dear, and I must say, in my opinion, it turned out gloriously," Sirpentious remarked as he set his eyes upon the Princess of Hell, then looked at the old-fashioned television once again. That's amazing." Princess Charlotte responded with pure happiness as tears of joy began in the corner of her eyes, all the while Izuku just observed the whole scene with a smile on his face, raising his ears and tail and being happy for his royal friend and for his demonic loved ones, giving him one more reason why there was kindness in everyone and everyone had a second chance. As he did this, his demonic sensei continued his speech, causing him and Princess Charlotte to look at him. "My apologies for interrupting you, dear, but it's about to start," the notable kingpin said, requesting the Princess of Hell to be quiet, resulting in both Charlie and Izuku setting their eyes on the old-fashioned TV, desiring to know how the new commercial looked. The moment they focused their vision on the vintage television, the screen shifted from the show that was airing and the advertisement began, giving our protagonist and his royal friend a chance to witness how it looked. On the right side of the screen, Vaggie was findable, while on the other side of the screen, the rest of the residents were findable, with Husk chugging down a bottle of alcohol, Angel blowing a kiss at the camera, Sirpentious standing there with pride, Niffty just staring at the camera in complete silence, not moving an inch, and Alastor being located the edge of the screen, acquiring a glitching effect around his body due to being filmed by a camera, everyone standing outside at the main entrance of the Hazbin Hotel and wearing 1930 styled clothes on their bodies, being put on them by the radio demon. As Princess Charlotte and the son of the radio demon observed the screen, Izuku became a bit sad after seeing the famous Pawn Star on screen due to the argument they had moments ago and thinking that everyone looked nice in their clothes. The girlfriend of the rehabilitation center opened her mouth on the footage, starting to speak. "Welcome to the Hazbin Hotel," Vaggie started, attempting to say the first line of the commercial. But as she was about to finish her sentence, suddenly, the commercial was interrupted and the screen changed, showing the logo of Hell's #1 news bringer channel, the 666 News, with its theme starting to play and the logo wrapped around with words. Breaking news, resulting everyone, with the exceptions of the cannibalistic serial killer, who observed the screen with his well-known grin, the alcohol-loving feline sinner, who just stared at the TV with boredom, and the cockroach-based female demon, who laughed gleefully at the whole situation, to become quite angry at this. All the while our dear hero acquired an upset expression on his face, feeling sad for his demonic loved ones for being to present their advertisement about the hotel to the masses of Hell, attempting to say something that could at least cheer them up a bit. "I liked it," our young Cambion replied with a small smile on his face, attempting to cheer Charlie, Vaggie, and Sirpentious up a bit, surprising the moth-like female demon and making her morphed a smile on her face, happy to hear that despite seeing just one scene of it, at least one person enjoyed the commercial, thus not rendering her and others' hard work with it to nothingness. Shortly after Izuku told this, the screen cut away from the logo, showing off the two news reporters of 666 News, Katie Killjoy, a female sinner with white skin and a red dress sitting at the left side of the screen, and Tom Trench, a male damned soul with a gas mask as his face and wearing a blue suit on his body, being positioned at the right side of the screen. As the two reporters appeared on the screen, the female sinner moved her jaw muscles, beginning to speak. Breaking news in hell today, Katie Killjoy started. We have just received a message from the Heaven Embassy that the next extermination is happening sooner than ever before, she announced, then continued, Do you know what that means, Tom? The female sinner reporter wondered from her coworker, moving her body and turning towards him. No, what does that mean, Katie? Tom Trench asked. It means we're all royally fucked, Katie Killjoy declared, coming very close to the camera and looking right into it. Then, the screen changed yet again and presented the giant clock in the middle of the capital city of hell as the screams of panicking sinners were hearable, showing the number of days that were before the next extermination, which was 276 days away, decreased to 93 days, meaning that the next extermination would occur on the 2nd of July, right in the middle of the year. Hearing the news, everyone looked at the screen in absolute shock and quietness, including Izuku, who lost his small smile from before and observed the screen with pure horror and fear in his eyes, flattening his ears and tail in fright. He couldn't believe what he had just heard. Those exorcists, those deadly angels, those monsters who traumatized him for life, injured him, almost ended his and Melo's life, and still haunted him in his nightmares, were planning to return not only once, but twice that year. He thought that with him getting enrolled into his dream school and beginning his journey towards becoming a pro hero, everything would turn to the better side of things and nothing could change that. But yet, with this shocking news, it happened. Not only that, it became even worse when Izuku realized that with the extermination happening twice this year, there was a bigger chance of his demonic loved ones perishing during these events, resulting in him almost having a panic attack. Witnessing his child in such a state, the radio-loving overlord acquired parental worry inside his body and rose from his seat, walking up to our young overlord crouching down to his level. Don't worry, my dear boy, everything will be fine, Alastor assured as he placed his left hand on Izuku's right shoulder in a comforting manner, then went on with his speech. You just won't need to come down here when the extermination happens, okay? He suggested, attempting to calm his one and only child down. Okay, Izuku replied, agreeing to what his father suggested, still anxious due to the news he had just received. As the members of the main cast witnessed the whole situation with worry for our young Cambion inside them, something buzzed on the right arm of the wannabe overlord, causing him to take a quick glance at his right arm and rise up from the floor. My apologies, but it just came to my mind that I have something urgent to take care of, Sirpentious declared, gaining the attention of everyone in the lobby. Do you need my help, sensei? Our protagonist inquired, wishing to aid his demonic teacher. I'm afraid not, my dear pupil. The notable kingpin replied nicely, appreciating his pupil's desire to help him and calling him his sensei. I advise you to rest until your injured arm heals fully, he advised, then turned around, slithered in the direction of the nearest hallway, and entered it. All the while Charlie freaked out when she heard that her young Cambion friend was injured, asking him to show the area where he was hurt and telling him to be more careful. Once he was far enough and no one could see him, which he checked by looking behind his back, Sirpentious focused his attention on his right arm and pulled his right sleeve up, revealing a V-Watch, one of the products created by Voxtech Enterprises, on his arm, buzzing and waiting for Sirpentious to answer the call of the person who was calling him. Witnessing his watch, the wannabe overlord pressed the button on its side with his left index finger, answering the call. And when he did that, the screen on the watch lighted, revealing the television overlord, Vox, at the other side of the call, observing the notable kingpin and beginning to speak. So, did you find anything? Vox questioned, wanting to know if his spy got at least one step closer to finishing his secret mission. No, not yet, the notable kingpin replied with a gloomy expression, feeling bad for secretly crossing his pupil and the residents of the hotel, resulting in the TV overlord becoming agitated when he heard his spy's response. You've been in that effing hotel for almost a goddamn year, and you still haven't a single fucking thing? Vox questioned with rage, not believing that Sirpentious was such a failure. That was the real reason why Sirpentious was at the hotel. Before he attacked the hotel, the overlord of television sought him out in order to ask him to infiltrate the hotel and spy on the residents, especially on the radio demon, desiring to know why his rival returned all of a sudden after a decade just to help the shitty hotel of Lucifer's brat. But that was the only reason why Vox wanted the wannabe overlord to get inside the Hazbin hotel and spy on its residents. Despite so many years passing by, he couldn't forget that person he saw 10 years ago. That person, who appeared to be a kid and was with his rival, and who even shared some physical features with him. At first, he thought that person was the radio demon's actual biological son, but that seemed impossible since all sinners, including overlords, were sterile and couldn't have children. But still, he needed to know the true identity of that person. He had to. Hearing the TV overlord giving him this task, Sirpentious took it without hesitation, acquiring a chance to finally defeat the radio demon and show the 3Vs that he was equal to them. So, after he accepted this mission, he decided to infiltrate the hotel by attacking it with his airship, which of course didn't end well and resulted in him being offered to live at the hotel by the princess on the condition that he would go on the path to redemption, which offer he took, but only because of 2 reasons, with one being his secret mission, and the second being that he and his minions had nowhere to go. At first, Sirpentious thought this mission would be an easy cake and that he would perform it perfectly. But as he got to know the residents more closely, he started to have second thoughts about his task, especially after he met our protagonist and made him his pupil, growing very fond of him in the meantime and beginning to consider him as a son to him due to how much Izuku reminded him to the son he had all those many years ago. And because of these reasons, he grew more and more conflicted about his secret mission, not wanting to reveal his pupil's existence to the rival of the radio demon and to the masses of hell, and not desiring to stab him and the members of the main cast in the back with his betrayal. As the wannabe overlord thought back to this, the head of Voxtech Enterprises let out a tired sigh, being tired of all of this mess and continuing his speech. "Get to your effing work, or I'll handle you myself," the television warned, having enough of his double agent shitness. "Yes, SSS sir," Sirpentious responded, understanding what Vox said. And with this, the TV overlord ended the call and vanished from the screen of the watch, and Sirpentious looked at the floor in worry and uncertainty, not knowing what to do in the situation he was in. As this conversation between the 2 demons came to an end, at a destroyed part of Pentagram City, a drone with an angelic design, signaling its place of origin with it, descended from the sky, flying in the air and hovering over the destroyed city area, floating in the direction of the destination it was given by its deployer. After a few minutes of flying above the destroyed city area, it finally reached the location it was given. The lifeless, headless corpse of an exorcist, lying on the ground. Once hovering over the body of the deceased exorcist, the angelic drone stopped in its movement and scanned the corpse, documenting its finding by creating a picture about it and sending it back to the place it was sent out of. Back in heaven, in a dark room, the picture was received, being projected on the wall by a projector, with it being the only thing that emitted light in the room. And the room was not empty either. There were 2 angels in the room. One was Lute, the lieutenant of the leader of the angel army, standing next to the projected picture and wearing her exorcist uniform, and the other was none other than the leader of the angel army, the first man in existence, and self-proclaimed Dickmaster himself, Adam, sitting in his chair and observing the picture, having his usual clothing on his body. Once the picture appeared on the screen, the lieutenant moved her jaw muscles and opened her mouth, beginning to speak. "We've finally found the body, sir," Lute reported, then continued. "This is the second time they managed to kill one of ours," she declared with frustration in her voice as she stepped closer to her leader and positioned herself in the middle of the projected picture, referring back to the secret mission 10 years 2 of her comrades died. "We should go down there immediately and destroy them," the lieutenant demanded with anger, getting closer to her leader. "No, we can't risk them catching on," Adam answered, stopping his lieutenant in the action she preferred to do at that moment. "But sir, the abomination is still out there," Lute declared, reminding her leader of this crucial fact. "And it's my fault we couldn't exterminate him," she stated, then continued. "What if he and his little imp friend were the ones who killed our soldier?" The lieutenant questioned as walked up to her leader, desiring get revenge for her perished fellow soldiers. Lute had a good reason for her revenge. She felt responsible for the death of her 2 allies. If she had been quicker, if she hadn't missed so many strikes with her sword, And if she had infiltrated the house where the abomination and his father lived and had found him before the mission ended, she could have killed the abomination once and for all, and they wouldn't have needed to worry about it becoming stronger and a bigger threat to heaven. But instead, the abomination was alive and well, reminding Lute of her mistake and frustrating her with each passing day. As she remembered back to her mistake, her leader opened his mouth, starting to speak once again. "Yeah, sure, danger tits, you F up," Adam remarked. "But don't worry, you'll have a chance to make up for it," he assured, then continued, "because, when we go back, we'll kill that kid, his imp friend, and leave no demon to do a stunt like this again." The leader of the Dickmaster announced angrily, standing up from his seat and smashing the projector with his right hand, destroying it and making the room fall into complete darkness, forming an evil smile on his face, planning to finally erase the abomination from existence. The abomination who with his mere existence threatened the very foundation of heaven. The abomination who should have never existed, but yet he did. The abomination whom they failed to kill 10 years ago during that secret mission. The abomination, also known as izukumidoriya. So alright folks, that's all for today. Stay tuned for part 10. Do subscribe, like and share for more such videos. Also check out the story and author MaxX69 on FANFICTIONnet. Press the bell icon to be notified first on release. See you in the next video. Till then, goodbye.